everyone. My name is Andrew Henley, and I'm here with Pleasant Hill Historians again for our weekly update on how to research various things. Um, this week, wanted to focus on when was this photograph taken, but what I wanted to do was actually research a different photograph. And so you can see this photograph here. And so this photograph was specifically from Melbourne, Australia, in Victoria, and it's the company called Barroni and Company. And so I wanted to just go through a similar process to that of which we did a couple weeks ago, actually, now. And so we're going to dive into this photograph, and actually behind this image, I just took a screenshot of a nice picture I found online that is of Melbourne. And so if you aren't familiar with Melbourne, I think we're going to dive into that a little bit first. And so let me just set some things up here and then we'll get started. Okay, so I have here a document that we're just going to start off with the image itself and do a little background history. So here's the image. So let me put it here. I like to document, if you were here for our last one, I like to document kind of where we're finding things, different date ranges we're doing, different narrowing down, different pieces like that. So the context of the photo. This is actually, his name is Sidney Henley. On the back of it, it's Sydney, but I knew more about the photo and the context of where the photo came from, which we call the provenance. And so a really, really interesting picture, turn of the century, it looks like. But Sidney Henley was actually the son of James Henley of Australia. Now, James Henley was my great, great, great uncle. He moved to Australia after the death of his father in 1846, where he became the largest hop producer and when he died, it said he had 15,000 gallons of wine in his wine cellar. But really, really interesting story. But right now, we're going to focus on his son. So I'm actually going to dive a little bit into that. But first, I forgot to do this. I just want to do this. I do it every time. Let me introduce myself. Forgot to do that. I apologize. So my name is Andrew Henley. I am the president and founder of Pleasant Hill Historians. We do historical research. We do kiosks. We also do research regarding people's land and different things like that. I have partnered with the Lawrence County Historical Society historically doing their Civil War series. This year it's a little different because of everything that's going on. I'm working on my Master's of Library and Information Science at the University of Pittsburgh, and I hope to really use that understanding of how to research and different data and data analytics to dive a little more deeply into that, to partner my passion with history and education through various public pieces, such as those seen here. And so let me go ahead and dive into this photograph and who Sydney was a bit further. So I'm going to pull up my Ancestry account, which kind of outlines a bit about my family, but we'll say a bit. But Sydney, here we go. I just had him up. So Sydney was born in Oxley, Australia. I have some more information about him, but what we're narrowing down is the date that that image was taken. And so Sidney was born about 1869. I have some references to his birth here, and died in 1942. So we can put that in here. So 1869 to 1942. I'll just put about. And what I like to do, we're just going to put this. And we're going to say ancestry.com, and that's my reference, so I just wanted to narrow it down there. So this period of time, we know Sydney was alive. Now, he looks to be, well, he's older than a child, so I would say it maybe between the age of, I'll do conservatively age of 15 to age of 15 to 60, just to be sure. So that puts him at, let me just do my math real quick. So 1869 plus 15 years. So that would be between about 1884, and then we're looking at 1869 plus 60, between 1929. Now, I think that this is a little earlier, but it's just a narrowing down of this time period. So a bit 45 years now instead of his actual age duration, which was 73. So we've already cut it down by about 30 years, just by simply looking at, I didn't want to put him younger than 15 or older than 60. Some people age better. So let's go ahead and dive into a bit about that photograph. So as you can see here, there it says Barroni and Company, 153 Elizabeth Street in Melbourne, near Bork. Okay, so what I did last time, I went through DPLA, but this is an Australian record. And so I use Trove. Trove is the National Library of Australia's digital access point. And so Trove allows you to search through their records and try to find some more information about the piece that you're looking for. So it was specifically called Barroni and Company, and that was in Melbourne, Australia. And let's just go ahead and do it this way. Barroni and Company, Melbourne. And so we can see here some photographs popped up. That's good. Okay, just doing a quick search. And so we can start to dive into some of these pieces. So here's a picture from 1900, and it is at 153 Elizabeth Street. Here's another one, 1888, 109 Elizabeth Street. So this one would be the correct location. So it looks like about 1900. Here in 1890, and that's at 153 near Bork, which is the same time period that we were looking at. And now, as we're going through, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick search. We'll dive out of that real quick. So it's going to be Barroni and Company, and that is in Melbourne. So we're doing the same search and see what we can come up with. So here it does give us the same listing to Trove that we were originally looking for. And what this is these are artists. So I'm just gonna Barroni, B-A-R-R-O-N-I. Here we go. So Barroni and Company. Looks like there's a date of 1887, but two works exist. There's no more information regarding it, but there is some context on the images. So it says it closed in 1900. So this gives us some background. 153 near Bork. Now I'm curious who Barroni is. So we sometimes can narrow it down by the artist. And so if we're looking for the artist, there was a listing here, 1901, Barroni, here we go, among others. So it showcases some of the works. we're just going to search a little bit further. Barroni and Company, Melbourne. So this is without the quotations around Barroni and Company. We do find some here in New Zealand on their National Library of New Zealand's website. Now they might be able to give us some more information. There's Barroni and Company, but this is at 109 Elizabeth Street. And so it does state a little bit about the artist. It gives a date range of 1887 to 1900. Now this one, I just wanted to revisit the date ranges. So here's 143 or 153 Elizabeth Street. Doesn't really give a date. And then there's this one. Again, this is 109. But again, it doesn't give a date. It only gives this small portion of Barroni and Company. So let's see what this says. So Barroni and Company, Melbourne, 1887 to 1900. It says group photo. The earliest is 1887. The latest is 1900. Doesn't really provide research or justification as to those date periods, but it could be that that is the actual operating dates of the art itself. And so let us see. There is the Barroni and Company record here that we can read a little bit about. And here it says W. Dunning was a proprietor on Elizabeth Street. And so it doesn't provide what I would say to be enough documentation to say it's 1887 to 1900. Even though it does say here as well, it says established and closed. Let me just verify that. So what I like to do, I like to just double check and see some of the date ranges of these photographs. And so most of these do fall within that date range of 1887 to 1900. The only challenge I have is some of these photos are after 1900, but it would fall into play with respect to the image that we're looking at comparatively to the cards themselves. So let's go ahead. I'm comfortable now. Let's cite this source and we'll cite the other one. So Barroni and Company, and we'll just say years of operation. So this is narrowing it down even further, and then 1887 to 1900. And I'll go ahead and put in some of the sources. So that one from the Victoria, Australia, and that one from New Zealand. So now we're down to this one. I'd just like to put 72 years, and then we narrowed it down to 45 years. Let's hope my math is correct, but I'm just going to do it anyhow. So 1929 minus 1884, yep, 45 years. And then we narrowed it down to from 1900 in 1887, so that's 13 years. So we already narrowed it down about, 59 years total. So these were the years of operation. However, we're looking for 153 Elizabeth Street. Ooh, if I can spell, that'd be great. Elizabeth Street in Melbourne. And it will be near Bourke Street. So that's that's the exact address that we're looking for, because if you saw, it had 109 and it had 153. I'm just putting this down too, and then we'll be able to see kind of when that date range, when they were at both of those locations existed. So let's go to the one photograph that we have here. So here we have 1887 to 1888. Not really sure why, but it does say this is at 109 Elizabeth Street. Now this one, it gives us a date of the 1890s. This is at 153 Elizabeth, near Bourke, which is the same area that we're really looking at. And it does give the names of the individuals too. So that's really nice. We might be able to find some more information about Mr. and Mrs. Stock, or that might be a little challenging because we don't know their first names, or we could try to find out some more information about when it was at 109 and then when it was at 153. So let's see. Melbourne City Directories. I don't know if this exists, but we'll give it a try. I know that I've used city directories before to really navigate some of the area and to understand kind of what the addresses were of some of these places and to find out some more information regarding it. What's nice is in Ancestry, we also have some records that we can reference specifically for the city directories. So if you go to card catalog, if it loads, we can go to card catalog and try to find the directory that what directory we're looking for. And so I'm going to do Oceania, Australia. It's in Victoria, right? Just wanted to make sure. Yep. Down in the state of Victoria. Where was I? Here we go. And then we're looking at directories. Australia city directories. That sounds appropriate. And then we'll choose the state of Victoria. Here we have Melbourne, 1860s to 1914. So we had a question then in 1887. That's the start date. 1887, where was it? Unfortunately, there's a gap here. So 1884 doesn't to 1887. So 1892 is our first stop. Let us see. And then what's nice, sometimes in the directories, there's an index of how the book is organized, and then you can really dive into some of it. There's a lot of advertisements. Directories were sometimes paid for by the advertisements, so they wanted to make sure they could fit as much as possible within it. And so what I'm doing now is just leafing through some of the pages. Here we go. There's the cover page. And then we need to find out an index to the streets, index to the buildings, chambers, index to advertisements, list of abbreviations. Alphabetical directory is at 585. So this is a large directory. So I'm just going to type in 585 and see where we go. And it looks like we are not there yet. But what I just found out is that these are all labeled by street. So maybe this might prove fruitful. If not, we can always go into it and try to find the information by going into it by name. And so the street we're looking for is Elizabeth Street. Here we go. And it looks like the north side of the street doesn't have that that numbering system that we were looking for. And so that could draw some concern. But we know that it's on the corner near Bork Street. So let us see. And there's no map just yet. Oh, okay, so this could be because this is South Yarra. We might be having to go to, yes, this makes more sense now. So we would have to go to the city of Victoria inside the book itself. So if you see here, that's St. Kilda. So let's go to page 200. We're in Brunswick. Let's go to page 1200. And here's an alphabetical listing, but let's see if it, so I'm jumping all around here, but you know, what's nice about this is that there are different ways to really research this book. So you could do it alphabetically, you could do it locationally, you could do it by street, by city, and there offers a large, many different options. So sometimes people were able to find things um, via um, via alphabet. It depends on whatever was easier, but they wanted to make sure that these directories were used, and so they printed them in different ways. So let us keep going. I'm going to do 680, see how close we are. Okay, BAK, BAL, BAL, BAN, BAR. Okay, BARF, BARN, BARN, BARR, BARRO, BARRON, and Barroni and Company. Just want to make sure I'm spelling it. BARRONI. So here's Barron, but nothing is coming up here. Barron for Barroni and Company. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to back out of this really quickly. And sometimes there's a feature that you can really search the directory without having to go page by page. But I'm just wanting to see if that's an option for us. If so, that might be a little easier. Yes. Okay. There we go. BARRONI and Company. I'm just going to put exact. And let's see what we find. Okay, there's nothing. So let's try without exact. Nothing. Okay, let's try without the without the quotation marks. The quotation marks, the purpose of them is that they'll only find where that phrase is listed exactly as it's stated. And so if you're looking for certain things, it might be easier for you to use quotation marks rather than just keywords, but sometimes it's not. Unfortunately, I keep running in circles, not finding what I want. But we can always go back into that 1892 because I'm just wanting to make sure I have this correct street address. And here we have, so Elizabeth Street, Melbourne. That's what we need. But let us go to page 25. Here we go. So this is indexed by town, or excuse me, by town and suburb. And we're looking for Melbourne. That's the city, not within the town. Excuse me. And then let us see here. This might be able to help us a little more. Okay. So it says it starts on page 1, but we kept going around. So let me start on page 80 and see how close we are to 1. Okay, here we are, page 8, but it's close to 1. I need to find out how this is organized. There's Bork Street. So that's kind of the street that we need. It said it was near Bork. And so here we go. There's Queen Street, Beckett, Bank. And this is Bank, Bork Street. Okay. Now, what we're looking for is Elizabeth near Bork. So I'm going to forward through some of this. Now we're on Collins. Market, too far. Oops, way too far. 100. Elizabeth, awesome. So what we're trying to do is find this photo of Sidney Henley, Barroni and Company, 153 Elizabeth Street, Melbourne, near Bork Street. And as we search through this, 136, so it looks like it's going to be on the other side of the street. And let me see if it starts on, here we go. Here we go. And it is on 153. So it doesn't show the correct photographer. That's interesting. So I'm not seeing this Barroni and Company in 1892 at 153. But the other address that we were given was 109. Now that's 107. It says vacant. And there is a photographic artist, Mora and Company, not Melbourne, or not Barroni. So that puts us in a really struggling place. Now, we know that coming from that previous research that we had, that it closed around 1900. So what we're going to do is go to the 1899 one and see if we can find it there, just so we're for sure where it was located. Sometimes street numbers change. Sometimes when we're trying to find something, we can look at how many buildings it is away from a certain cross section. Here we go. And so Melbourne streets, Melbourne streets, here we go. 80. See where we are. 26. It says Little Collins Street. I wonder if that's a C or an L. Here we go. Actually, it was a C. It's on the other side of the street. So evens are on one side, odds are on the other. So that's why I said it was on the other side of the street. Here we go. So we have a proprietor. Yay. So we find here that Barroni and Company photographers, William Dunning, proprietor, was located at that address, 153 in 1899. So we know that in 1899 it was at that address. And what I'm going to do is just screenshot that, and I like to copy the link and paste it down below, just so we have it in case I question later on, where did I find this information? We can always reference just that. So we know in 1899 it was there, but let us now go back a few years. So 1899, I'm going to skip to there's an 1888. 1899, 1889, maybe. Nope, 1892 wasn't there. 1893, 1896. We know it wasn't in 1892. I couldn't find it actually at all. Here's the 1892. It's not shown at 109, which was the one address that we found, 109 Elizabeth, and then the other one we found was 153. And so whenever I was looking here, I would say I would want to start looking at Elizabeth Street and here towards Bork. And so we're looking through this. I don't see a William Dunning. I don't see a Barroni and Company in 1892 at all. But let us go to 1893. See what we can find there. And so what we're doing, we're narrowing down when its existence was at that specific address. And I think that what this provides us is just an understanding of how long the company was located at that address to visually see the um, the time frame that this photo was taken. If that was taken, sorry, if that was taken at that location we were looking for. So the one address we had was 109. It is not showing here in 109. So then the other address we have is 153. And it says 153. It says Stewart and Company, importers of photo materials. So in 1893, it was not located at 153. And as I said, we like to look at cross sections. So you see here Bork Street, and we are at 165, 163, 159. It said it was near Bork, but when we look through any of these, we are not finding that proprietor, William Dunning, within this listing, unless I'm seeing things. No, I don't see a William Dunning within this listing. I can even go here and search through some of these. So now we're at Little Collins Street. Okay, so I can say that I could not find it in 1893. So we know, okay, so we checked 1892, nothing there. We checked 1893, nothing there. And I will go ahead and put in these links. So in case somebody asks, and we have them. Okay. And again, the purpose of this really is to dive into that date range that we find William Dunn or Barroni and Company at 153 Elizabeth Street. So I jumped back to 1893. Let's jump forward to 1890. 1897. And again, 80, jump forward. And we are at Collins Street. So I know we're close. 85, just to forward a little bit. To Grave Street, Elizabeth Street. Here we go. We are at Elizabeth. We need the other side of the street, so we're at the evens. Now we're at the odds. And we know that the first address we're looking for is 109, and it doesn't show here as 109. And the second address we're looking for is 153. Now, the reason why, again, we're doing two different ones is because we have two different addresses that were associated with Barroni and Company. So if you saw there, I did find Barroni and Company at 153 in 1897. So we know, there we go, in 1897, it was at there we go. And I'll just put this 18. I want it in order. So let's do that. So this one was we can go ahead and I'm just playing around with it, I guess. But I'm just going to put an alternate text on it, or I just want a, maybe it's under layout. Okay. We are going to put just a small piece under it that's going to comment on it then. That works. So 1899 on, or excuse me, this is actually 1897 on that one. And then the other one we have here is this one here. We're going to just insert a caption. That's what I wanted. So this one, new label, 1899. And I just want a caption. So I'm going to just put no, I don't want any, you know what, let's just go ahead and just do this, just so save some time. That one's 1899. Okay, now this one's 1897. Caption, new label, 1897. Great. Delete comment. Okay, and then in 1897, I'm going to take that link here, throw that under. So we know now 1897 and 1899, they were there. So it's easy to say that they could be there for the duration of that period. So now we need to go backwards. We know that it was not there in 1893 and it was there in 1897. So I'm going to go backwards to 1896 because that's the only directory that is in here for that year. And now we're going to go to page 80, see what street we're on. We're at Collins and Little Collins. 85 throws us at Little Collins and Elizabeth. So now we're on the one side of the street. Now we have to go to the other side. Here we go. And this puts us on Elizabeth. And it's 109, or it is 153. We find Barroni and Company. So they were here, 153 in 1896. So let me, oh, that's not where I wanted it. Okay, and we're going to just put a caption 1896. Okay. And then we can put 1896 here, copy this link, paste it here. And now we have 1896 to 1899. They were located at 153 Elizabeth Street. And what we are struggling with, sometime between 1893 and 1896, they either moved or they were not there. And so there is no Melbourne Directory Sans that exists for that time period. However, what we can do is dive a little more into well, I am comfortable with saying 1894 to 1889. We have narrowed it down to 153, and so I'm going to go ahead and put down that. And what I'll do, I'll just do this. And I'll just use those as reference points. So we know that 1894, I'll put about 1894 to 1897. They were located at 153 Elizabeth. And so that marks it down to 5 years that this photo could have been taken. Now, what we know, enough to really decipher this, we could then look at when Sidney Henley was living within Melbourne, or if he had moved away from Melbourne, or any other research within his livelihood or his travels, and to really look more deeply at his residences. But unfortunately, I don't think that there's a lot that really I've collected about him. I don't have some of his letters. I don't have some other pieces about him. Nor do I know a little bit. I don't have him being married at any point. And so there's kind of a blockage here. But I am comfortable with saying that we've narrowed it down a great number of years, almost 60 years, just to the 5-year period of 1894 to 1899, which this photo was taken at 153 Melbourne. Actually, before I speak, I forgot to check the 1900 one, because if you recall, it closed in 1900. So I might be forgetting 1 year that we could include within this time frame. So historically, we've used page 85, but it puts me close at Collins, and then I can forward it through into Elizabeth Street. Here we go, and Elizabeth, and down. Oh, here we go. Okay. So, good thing I checked that. We now have another date. This one is for 1900, so I'll put it after this. And I'll go ahead and insert a caption as new label 1900. That's fine. Okay, so we have also 1900. So instead of 5 years, it'll be 6 years. And I can put this here as well. What's nice is that, so what I've been using is Ancestry's world package that allows me access to some of the records within Victoria, Australia, and different pieces like that. Now, I don't recommend purchasing your foreign ancestry just yet until you know for certain that you've done all of your work within the American. If you're in America, if you've done all of your work within the American ancestry world before purchasing or upgrading to the Ancestry Global version. But what I've did here, I went ahead. I've been able to narrow it down to 1894 to in 1900. I put about mostly because sometimes the directories were printed different points in time, and so they could have moved in there after 1893 mid-year or late year, and so it depends on that time period. So about gives us some fluctuation of about 1 or 2 years. So if you're familiar with my nice little Excel spreadsheet here, I have some artifacts, and the one that we were looking for was actually for Sidney Henley. Here we go. And now we know that instead of 1869 to 1942, we have about 1894 to, I'll put about 1900. So that gives us a nice area to really look at if we're going to narrow down that photograph further. And as I said, if I find more information about Sidney and where he was, specific time periods, I can put this down from 6 years into maybe 5 or 3, or even a reference to that exact day that he took his picture. And so this is a nice little sample of how to go about researching your photos if you have foreign photographs that you really want to investigate, that you want to dive into, find more information about when they were taken, and this could narrow down if they're unidentified, who they were, if you found them in the box of related materials. And so you can see who was alive during that time and match up some of that information with that individual. As I do during all of my debriefings, I like to showcase a nonprofit. I've discussed them a little bit, but I wanted to share the Lawrence County Historical Society. So I serve as a board member at the Lawrence County Historical Society. I've been there since 2008, where I started to volunteer. And the collections within the Historical Society, I think, are quite marvelous. Comparatively to other nonprofits and other historical societies, they are quite extensive. You could write hundreds of books about the materials that they have. I think that I know for Giving Tuesday is around the corner in May, the first Tuesday in May. And so if you are from the United States, you are interested in giving, I highly suggest giving. We're probably going to try to create a nice fundraiser for our page on Facebook. You're welcome to follow us. You can do so by going to my website at www.phhist.com. You can email me any questions you might have, or you can fill out the form on our website. Check out some of the blog articles that are on the website. And if you're interested, join us again. We always have different topics. This one I wanted to revisit to do some research on that photograph. And so next Friday at 6 o'clock, be sure to join us and learn a little bit more about researching your history. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.